education matters. The culture and the future of the family are dependent on what we're teaching our young people. And I know that's why you're here, because it matters what they're taught. Even if children go to a private school, like many of us have done over the past, our kids were in private Christian school for a while until we couldn't afford it anymore. But then they are out in the world. And most kids go to public school. And so what they are taught determines the culture. Pure and simple. They do have the majority. Is this new that we're talking about it now? No, of course it's not new. My experience is with the local schools. About 30 years ago, we have 3 children, 8 grandchildren now. And that was the time of the AIDS curriculum. Anybody remember the AIDS curriculum, the AIDS scare, the AIDS curriculum? What did the AIDS curriculum teach? That you should go ahead and have sex when you're 12. We'll just give you condoms. And, you'll be protected. And even if you get AIDS, you can live with it and be healthy. It's okay. Craziness, risky behavior. Mutual masturbation was considered to be a form of abstinence. Safe sex. Yeah. Okay, school boards have become puppets of the state. I went to a school board meeting, and actually it was really easy to get people to get to school board meeting back then. We didn't have email, we didn't have Facebook. We just had the local paper, and I wrote soapboxes in our local paper so often that individuals in my community thought I worked for the paper. In fact, on my birthday, they sent me, a happy birthday, which was kind of cool. But we need to speak out. Stephanie, this morning, she was talking about that. We have free speech. We need to speak out about things that we know are wrong. It doesn't matter if you have children or not. It doesn't matter if you're a grandparent or not. If you pay taxes in Oregon, you're invested in a quality education and the culture that we are creating. So nothing has really changed since back then. Back then, the school board, they were puppets of the administrators. The administrators, it's so confusing to be a school board member. You run for office and you get on the board and they keep you in meetings and, basically groom you for saying yes to the superintendent. Has anybody witnessed this? Yeah. I'll tell you more about that later. So nothing has changed except now it's on steroids. Let's watch our video. We have a great video. 2 members of our organization are featured in this video.
This is definitely an attack. It will affect your child rearing. It will affect your education system.
This is instructions for the teacher in the classroom to ask her or his students, how do people express their sexual feelings? What is abstinence? And here are some answers. Oral sex, masturbation, anal sex, massage, holding hands, touching each other's genitals, saying, I like you. And what they're doing is equating all these things. Saying, I like you is equal to anal sex.
It is pornography men, especially on the House floor, did not want to look at. We couldn't show this on the television news, but yet we want our 4th grade children to be looking at this book.
In the name of sexuality education, children are seeing obscene materials that have been ruled by Congress and by the Supreme Court impossible to show to children.
An online CSE program for African youth called The World Starts With Me tells children that sexuality includes oral sex and masturbation. It then tells them it's their own choice if they want to lose their virginity. It shows children pictures of naked girls and boys in various stages of development, and then asks them to point out differences in their private parts. Parents likely will never know, as it is all done online away from home.
They have elementary students as young as 9 years old. Then they teach them how to wear a condom. And they have this plastic genitalia, and they even have young girls. They're teaching them how to put a condom on a male genitalia and boys how to put a condom on a women's genitalia without the knowledge and consent of the parents.
They're giving them handouts, negotiating sexual encounters with other students. For example, there are statements like this: "Can I take your shirt off? It makes me hot when you touch me here. Is it okay if I take my pants off?"
Where we in Latin America, we still have a lot of poverty. We have communities that don't have fresh water, that don't have electricity. Focus is completely shifted from basic needs. They get comprehensive sexual education without the consent of parents, taking and deconstructing the family.
My brother Luigi and I had an opportunity to go to the United Nations and give a speech on the UN floor. I told them how Planned Parenthood was passing out a booklet for HIV positive youth at the United Nations called Healthy, Happy, and Hot. This is for the kids who have AIDS. It teaches about sexual pleasure through masturbation, with same-sex partners, and even if you are drunk.
This pamphlet called Healthy, Happy, and Hot tells young people that you have the right not to disclose your HIV status to a sexual partner if you're not comfortable. It also tells young people that are HIV positive that if they decide with their partner not to wear a condom, that's their decision.
The World Health Organization standards for sexuality education in Europe actually suggest that children ages 0 to 4 should be given information about masturbation and given the right to explore their gender identity. For ages 4 to 6, children should be taught about same-sex relationships and respect for different norms regarding sexuality.
The interests of organizations like UNFPA and IPPF is to get parents out of the picture and to radicalize and sexualize children.
UNFPA has tried to convince my country to change our positions on issues such as reproductive rights and comprehensive sexuality education. Madam Chair, does the UNFPA think it can do this because Nauru is the smallest member state of the United Nations?
The Nigerian government was actually told by the Western countries that if they do not give in, that they will be denied foreign aid.
On page 89 of a UNICEF-published Sexual and Reproductive Health Manual, UNICEF listed situations in which one can obtain sexual pleasure that included sexual responses directed towards inanimate objects, animals, minors, and non-consenting persons.
In the context of the Sustainable Development Goals that determines the agenda for the next 15 years, the voice is very, very biased. It's just International Planned Parenthood Federation and their affiliates have a direct influence on the outcome documents, on what is established, what is negotiated at the UN.
Some of the objectives of the UNESCO Sexuality Education Guidelines include teaching children at age 9 about sexual stimulation and the definition and function of orgasm, and at age 15, that both men and women can receive sexual pleasure with a partner of the same or opposite sex. The It's All One curriculum, also promoted by International Planned Parenthood, reveals the multiple manipulative tactics used to indoctrinate and sexualize children through CSE. Like other CSE programs, It's All One claims, among other things, to be evidence-based, comprehensive, human rights, gender-sensitive, and culturally appropriate education that will increase young people's responsible decision-making, to reduce adolescent rates of pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. It's All One, however, like most CSE programs, is really just cleverly disguised abortion rights, sexual pleasure education, masquerading as human rights, gender, and sexual and reproductive health education. It aggressively promotes abortion, with over 112 references to abortion. It's All One has an obsessive focus on sexual pleasure, mentioning sexual pleasure 62 times. It promotes multiple sex acts and instructs children on how to stimulate themselves or their partner to orgasm. To explore their readiness, children fill out a worksheet that infers children are ready to have sex when you are feeling sexually attracted to the other person, and when you're feeling comfortable about telling the other person what feels good sexually. It teaches that human rights encompass sexual rights, including alleged rights to all persons to sexual expression and the right to seek sexual pleasure. Hooking children on sex is a multi-billion-dollar business for Planned Parenthood and other similar organizations. This is because children, or prospects, once sexualized, become Planned Parenthood customers, dependent upon their services. Comprehensive sexuality education programs are disguised under many names. They may be called comprehensive sex or sexual education, education on human sexuality, reproductive health education, information on sexual and reproductive health, family life education, teen pregnancy prevention, rape prevention, anti-bullying programs, HIV/AIDS prevention, and sometimes even abstinence or abstinence plus education. CSE programs usually falsely claim to be age-appropriate, evidence-based, healthy sexuality education that will prevent teen pregnancy, sexual abuse, STDs, and HIV.
One of the handouts that concerns me the most is called the Genderbread Person. They teach that gender is a spectrum, that you can choose to be whatever you want. You could be all female one day and the next day feel like you're neither female or male.
Frankly, it's confusing. It's a mental molestation. We're confusing these kids as to what they are.
From a medical perspective, when sexual freedom is the priority, then sexual health is going to suffer.
There are laws in Oregon where children as young as 15 can get taxpayer-funded sex changes without parental consent. You can't have an aspirin at school without parental consent. However, a student could make these life-altering, permanent decisions without their parental knowledge or consent.
Sexual rights, sexual education movements began with Dr. Alfred C. Kinsey. Kinsey actually had pedophiles measure with a stopwatch how many children could achieve what he called orgasms within a 24-hour period. Today, comprehensive sexuality education is based on this philosophy that children are sexual from birth, created by Kinsey.
Say no to CSE! Say no to CSE!
We've got to stop it. We've got to use everything at our disposal. We have to stand together to stop this attack against our children.
And they have all this funding and this organization, but we know that if we stand together, we can do something for the family, for the children.
We stopped the Kinsey sexuality education program in Croatia.
It is time for parents to say, no, my family is mine. My wife is mine. I am hers. Our children are ours.
Band together and find ways to stop it from entering your country.
Men have to rise up, defend their family. On matters sexual, the fathers have got to stand up. Say, you have no place talking sexuality to my children. We resist it, even with our lives, because that's what life is all about.
It's happening on our watch. If we don't do something about it, it is all of us that carry that guilt.
To learn more and to sign the petition to stop comprehensive sexuality education, go to stopcse.org. Together, we can and will protect the world's children.
So this video is available online, and we're going to feature it on our website, but two of our members are featured in it. We are in coalition with an international organization, actually, but is centered in, actually in Arizona, the woman who created this video, along with the help of other coalition partners. The CSE, which is Comprehensive Sexuality Education, means just what it says. It is comprehensive. That means it's taught in every subject in the public schools, and in the state of Oregon, kindergarten through 12th grade. We're going to move on because we have other topics to address. But the point of us showing this video is to show you that this is not just an Oregon issue. It's not just, for parents with kids in schools. This is international. And like Stephanie was saying, the UN is highly involved in making decisions regarding these kinds of issues. And they are promoting it internationally. We did protest at the UN against UNICEF promoting this. Okay, so the question is, our next slide talks about GLSEN. GLSEN, G-L-S-E-N, stands for gay, lesbian, straight, okay, get this, gay, lesbian, straight education network. Now, doesn't that sound nice? That means we're all one big happy family, just, you know, kumbayaing around the campfire. Well, they have something very specific in mind. First of all, they're in our public schools. Kate Hudson, who is a Hollywood actress, stated this when she accepted a very high honor from GLSEN. She said, to create any real change and real movement, we all know that it starts with our children in their home environment and in their schools. Now, again, as I said before, this has been going on for a very long time. A school principal, where I was on a local school committee, a middle school principal at Fowler Middle School in Tigard, screamed at me because I made a comment about, you know, parents should be involved in the character education you're considering implementing. And he threw a newspaper down on the table and said, they're our kids too. Now, I always thought that they felt like we were just really inconsequential in the whole education process, but I'd never heard anybody say it till then. Most recently, at a school board meeting where I testified against reproductive health being offered in the Tigard-Tualatin School District school-based health clinics, the board chair stated, well, you know, we don't want our kiddos having sex. Our kiddos? There's a mindset here. Keep it in mind. So who are the players here? We have the Oregon Department of Education, the Oregon Department of Human Services, the Oregon Health Authority. These are your tax dollars paying for these groups. Of course, Planned Parenthood, the Human Rights Campaign, which in our schools, when you see those words on the marquee by your high school of a whole week of human rights celebration, it's not about the rights of you and me or the rights of the unborn. It's about the rights of the LGBT and Q and transgender community. The Oregon School-Based Health Alliance, GLSEN, of course. GLSEN sponsors the Day of Silence, which has been going on for 10 years in schools across America, all day, teachers and students not allowed to speak. Basic Rights Oregon, of course, they were key in advocating for gay marriage, as you may recall. They also advocate for 15-year-olds to have access to transgender medical treatment without parental knowledge or consent. The parents are out of the picture. And of course, Welcoming Schools. I do have a slide today, and it's out. Actually, this person's picture is at our booth. You need to come by and see it. It is a picture of Eli Sanders. There are faces behind all of these initiatives, and this fellow works for the Department of Education, the Oregon Department of Education. He is a comprehensive human sexuality ed specialist, and he trains teachers and advises school districts, school boards, superintendents, everybody all the way down on what curriculums they should use because they just have too much to do, and he will help them. Comprehensive sexuality education is really all about what? It's about minors' rights. In other words, the right of a minor to do whatever they want. They tell them, you can use a condom or not, you can have sex how often as you want, you should probably experiment with homosexuality, of course, to determine whether you are or not. And confidentiality. Confidentiality for who? For the kids, because they're doing things that probably their parents aren't too excited about. And what is sex all about to the comprehensive sexuality ed devotees? It's only really about pleasure. That's really what it's about. It doesn't have anything to do with procreation or anything. It's all about pleasure and consensual sex. Thank you. So, school-based health clinics, that's another issue that we're dealing with, because the school-based health clinics are now really getting a hold of our kids. As I said, they're established in Tigard Tualatin School District, of course, Portland. Other school districts have not allowed them, but there will be pressure. And when that school board is gone, another will come in, and maybe it'll get by. Transgender issues. That I brought my book with me. Have you heard of the book When Harry Becomes Sally? It's excellent book. It's a very instructional. It's like the handbook for the transgender issue. The point is, when no one can really change their sex, in conception you have two X chromosomes, and the two chromosomes, two cells that come together that create an XX or an XY. That's it. And every single cell that is developed from that is one or the other. You're either a guy or a gal. Every single cell in your body has that chromosome. So no matter how much mutilation goes on or how many hormones you take, you can't change someone's sex. But they are trying to now convince grade schools to celebrate children as young as second and third grade who decide that they really don't want to be Susie, they want to be Sam. And they want to be called Sam, they want to dress like Sam, they want to have a bathroom like Sam. They want all of that. And recently at Stafford School, all of the teachers in that grade level wore a T-shirt celebrating, I don't know what it said, celebrating this child's decision. We're talking about a 8 or 9 year old kid. Anyway, I think I have about 3 minutes left, but the Day of Silence, this is something that we are asking parents to do. It is on April 27th. And in most high schools in the state of Oregon, kids spend an entire day involved in this protest or a, what else would you call it? A solidarity to affirm homosexuality and transgenderism and to celebrate it. And so they put tape over their mouths, they don't speak, and there are teachers who also participate. They don't speak all day. Now, on one level, for me, that's like my tax dollars are paying for the school to be open and to be teaching kids. So we're just saying to the kids, don't go to school that day because the school districts will lose funding for that day, all the kids who don't go. We're going to be promoting that. We have several handouts for you today. We have handouts about rights, the fact that the Supreme Court from 1925 here in Oregon all the way through the year 2000 has ruled that parents do have the right to direct the education of their children. And yet, legislators are voting in laws that make it so that parents have no say what goes on with their kids in school. If they go to a school-based health clinic, their 11-year-old daughter can have a vaginal exam without the parents' knowledge or consent. But they can't get a tattoo. Something's wrong here. So we need to fight. We need to fight for this. We need to stand up. We need to get involved in class action lawsuits. But right now, we need to fill out this slip of paper. Did you guys get one on your table? This is to join us, receive our information, support us financially if you have a heart to do that, and also to speak up in your communities. We lost the vote in Tigard Tualatin because I was, aside from one woman who I had not met previously, we were the only two people at the school board meeting in Tigard who raised our hands and said no, and testified, said no, don't do this. And I will close with this statement. The president of the school board, remember I talked about how the teacher admitted that they're their kids? The president of the school board stated that we are not education institutions any longer, because I had made that point. You're an educational institution. Why are you getting involved in healthcare? Well, you're wrong. We're not educational institutions. We are in fact social service agencies. Now that should give you chills. I think probably everybody in this room is against socialism. You don't think we're there? We're there. But we can stop it with your help. How many of you know about the ASC? How many of you saw on the news, fabulous, you saw on the news, Coin 6, they ran multiple stories. Jim, would you stand up? Jim is a member of our organization, and he headed up a protest in Seaside. He'll talk about it if you have questions for him. He's going to sit on our panel. So he headed up a protest in Seaside to say, we don't want this. We don't want this in Seaside. The things that they were doing, they're basically, it's this whole CSC thing. But their keynote speaker was a porn shop operator and telling kids how to do teledonics online. And, these are like as young as 11-year-old kids. Teachers, healthcare workers, lots of adults are in it. And that fellow I told you about, Eli Sanders, well, we had Brad Victor then, same thing. Okay, so we got this stopped because it went public. We have to publicize what's going on. Can you put this up? Oh, that would be awesome. So we were on the news. We stopped it for the following year, which was 2015. We stopped it in 2014. In 2016, they held another one, a mini one, because they still exist. Okay, then they had it in 2017, last year. And they were going to have it again this year in 2018 on May 7th. However, we got wind of the fact that they were planning it. So Jim did a little research. He's a Catholic. It was going to be held at Providence Hospital, the new breast cancer facility. Yes. And they didn't know who they were signing up. It all sounds so good. Healthy children, good kids, all that. Well, it had nothing to do with that. So these people were enlightened, the Providence group, the Archdiocese, and they canceled it. Okay, go Jim. But here's the thing. We have to go after the head of the snake, not just cut off its tail every now and then. So we need more people to join with us. We need people all over the state who will not take a nap, who will not let up. Okay, so we have Jim Welsh. I'm gonna set up. Why don't you sit in the middle, Jim? Jim is our token guy. We don't discriminate, just so you know. We need guys. We need more men. Absolutely, we need more men. And Chris Bridges, come on up, Chris. Chris is featured in the movie, The War. You saw her, the very first one who was interviewed. You can grab the mic there. And then we also have Linda Eskridge. Linda is a school board member in Malala. There's steps over here. And they are fantastic members of our organization. We need more like them. We have on our website, if you go and sign up for our newsletter, you can indicate if you're on a school board or if you're a legislator or whatever. We want to communicate with all different kinds of groups. So let's start.
Hey, I'm Chris Bridgens. I've been with Parents' Rights in Education for about 5 years. Got started by fighting a school-based health clinic for the Astoria High School. We managed to, I'm in the spotlight. We were successful there. We were part of dealing with the Adolescent Sexuality Conference in Seaside, managed to defeat that with a lot of help from Jim and protesters there. And I think the most offensive thing to me when I started getting involved with the Oregon Department of Education and the Oregon Health Authority is that they operate in deceit. They're founded and grounded in deceit. And one of the most deceitful is pictured there, Eli Sanders. He's responsible for bringing the homosexuality and the comprehensive sexuality into our classrooms. He is deceitful because he says, well, this is healthy sexuality. This is healthy choices for the kids. This is safe sex. It keeps the children healthy, safe, and is good for their well-being. Well, this is a total lie, not just deceit, I guess, but it's a lie. And that's so offensive to me. The same thing happens with the transgender issue. It's a terrible fraud. As a matter of fact, we have a really good video of, it's called The Terrible Fraud of Transgender Medicine. It is so wrong. It's never right to exploit children as they do. It's always wrong.
Okay, perfect. Jim Welsh.
Hello. In 2014, I was looking in the calendar of events for the Oregon or the Seaside Convention Center, and I was looking for a venue for actually in November. But as I was scrolling through the convention center's calendar, I noticed a booking for I believe it was April the 6th and 7th of 2014 for an ASC conference, and I said, "Well, what is that?" So I went on into hit the date there, and it was the Adolescent Sexuality Conference, and I said, "Well, never heard of it." As I found out, and it had been going on for well over 20 years, right across from our church, and we were unaware. And as I found out, it was a conference composed of educators and students as young as middle school age who went to this conference. And then I started speaking with Chris, and she had been gathering information. And we found out that this was really a rather strange operation. And students were bussed in. The materials that were presented were just outrageous. You can see them on our website. And the speakers that they had scheduled were, again, the one for 2015 that was canceled was an actual porn sharp operator in Ontario, Canada. Anyway, we decided to stage a protest, and we ended up gathering 100 people standing in front of the convention center, and we ended up getting national publicity. We were on Drudge Report. We were, the Focus on the Family had an article. We were on all the TV stations in Portland here, and most impressively, a young lady, a reporter by the name of Carla Castano, did a series of reports cataloging what was going on there, and then interviewing or trying to interview state officials who weren't very happy in being put in front of a mic and a camera. Anyway, as it turned out, because of our work, the 2015 conference was canceled. We were shocked ourselves that they folded so easily. The conference was kind of resurrected in 2016 in Astoria. It wasn't very well attended. And then in 2017, they just had this summit at one of the hotels in Portland. What happened this year was that a group called Oregon Teen Pregnancy Task Force, which sounds okay, doesn't have anything that would raise too much of your antenna, booked a venue on May the 7th at the Providence Hospital Cancer Center Amphitheater. And I knew that group because they were the sponsoring organization for all these years of this conference. And so I contacted the lady that was the head of booking, and I said, do you know anything about the Oregon Teen Pregnancy Task Force? And basically she didn't. And I think she was very honest in her belief that it was just a group that wanted to have this venue, use this venue. So anyway, I then contacted the Archdiocese because I felt that, this wasn't something that most especially a Catholic hospital should be involved with. They contacted, and I'd like to thank Todd Cooper, who apparently he made contact with Providence Hospital. I'm sure he contacted the Archbishop, or at least somebody close to the Archbishop, and lo and behold, Providence Hospital basically canceled their date of May the 7th, and we don't know where they've rescheduled it to. But again, just average people can do things and have big achievements if you give the light of day to these organizations, because the last thing they want is people looking into what they're doing. This GLSEN thing has become a big issue.
The Day of Silence.
Pardon me?
The Day of Silence.
Yes, the Day of Silence. And I'll tell you what it's all about.
Oh,
There's
Jim, can we move on
Sure.
and introduce Linda, and then we'll come back to that?
Okay.
We're running out of time, unfortunately. I'm really sorry.
I'm
But
just
Jim is
gonna be-
exactly right. Yeah, we're not, we're not unusual. Yes, we're not unusual people. We're just people who ask questions. Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, I'm Linda Eskridge. I'm a school board member, was elected in 2011 and then reelected for another 4 years. And I met Parents' Rights in Education. They came to our OSBA conference, summer conference, and they told me all about these things that are being taught at the adolescent sexual conference at Seaside. And I thought, these girls are crazy. How can they be teaching this kind of thing? Like, what is it? How to get your groove on fluid-free and dry humping saves lives and all that. And then I looked through these little Zen magazines, and it was so disgusting. I just couldn't believe it. And then, thank God, Carla Castagna comes on TV, Coin News, Channel 6, and all these things I was telling my superintendent, Tony Mann, at the Malala River School District. I mean, they weren't thinking this is a crazy girl having a fit, that it was actually true. So it kind of gave me some validation after I was telling them all about the materials that were being spread, and I was hoping that none of our students had gone to this conference. Another thing I was on a bandwagon about is books like The Bluest Eye from Toni Morissette, and it's about a pedophile and his lust for a young child. And it's required reading from our children who are as young as, 14 years old or younger. And it is disgusting. And then there's The Mother of Monsters, which, pretty much advocates abortions because she was having all these kids biting her abdomen, and she'd have these monster children, and then she'd sell them to circuses. There's so many books that are so pornographic that are being given to our children as great reading material. I was having a fit about that, and I wanted to make sure it's not in our school library. So make sure when you're talking to your school board member that they are looking out for your kids, checking out the books. Another thing I want you guys to do is make sure that you call your school and ask the superintendent or the business office person to make sure that you get information when new materials are going to be adopted. You have the right to have full access to any material that's being adopted. And when you see that it's being advertised as health or physical education materials that are going to be adopted in such and such a time, it's not. It's sex education, all covered up under health education and physical education. So have your antennas up. Get a club together and make sure that you are reviewing all of these books. Make sure that these superintendents put that material out in a public library, not in a school library where it's only open from 8 in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon, and then you're not coming home until 5. You have no access at all. So you can push these things, and I have pushed to make sure that it is out. In fact, the principal who was in charge of this material was telling me, oh, yes, Linda, it's in the public library. Well, the day I was expecting it to be in the library, it wasn't there. And of course, I was madder than a wet hen. And I came over there and talked to Tony Mann, our superintendent, and then he had to call the principal because he knows how mad I get. And so they went ahead and they put it out. In fact, that material's been out there for the last month. The thing that concerns me is not enough parents come out to review the material, no matter how much I have my little fit. I need more support from parents. I need them to come out and go to the schools, find out when they're having their meetings. They have work meetings once a month, and then they have the regular session where they're voting on, whether they're going to adopt materials or do other things like the budget. So if you could just check and make sure you go to these school board meetings and find out what's going on. In fact, even go and visit your school and see what's being taught or see what's up on the hallways. Like the Day of Silence, they have all of this LGBT GLSEN stuff all over the hallways. So you need to say you are offended by this kind of thing because they're saying how offended they are that we're homophobic or whatever we want to be. But, you need to express yourselves.
Can you tell she's as mad as a wet hen? All righty.
Okay.
So we have just a few minutes left for questions. I know you had a question. Would you stand up and state your question?
I have two questions. One is,
Oh.
high school daughters, and these children are subjected to questions that are just completely inappropriate, pornographic, some of them, obviously pushing an agenda. There is you may personally opt out, which of course is fine, but we'd love to not see it given to all the students.
In fact, I did have that happen. It was the Healthy Teen Survey. That's what you're talking about? Okay, well, I asked my superintendent to write a letter of cease and desist, and that survey has not been given in the Malala River School District. So you can ask him to cease and desist. And your students are not required to fill this out. In fact, if that's handed to them, you tell your students, don't fill out any surveys.
Bring it home
It's
so
none
mom can
of-
see
yeah,
it.
It's none of their business, and they're not to take away school time and education to fill out these stupid little surveys. Okay, you need to start calling your school district and you need to go to these meetings and say, I don't want this survey. And if you see that in your kids' hands or you hear about it, make sure you talk to your kids and say, I want to know about any surveys that are given, because they're not supposed to be using school time to give a survey. This is not even required.
And
It's
these
not a part of their
surveys-
education.
Right. These surveys are used when they determine whether or not students need quote, quote, services on campus related to reproductive health. So they use the kids' survey. How many, as far as I'm concerned, teen equals rebellion. Just like Stephanie was saying. I mean, it goes beyond that, of course, we all know.
Well, one thing that's very funny is that I know my daughter said that a lot of the kids answered lied. Basically,
They lie.
There's a gender question that says, are you male, female, other stuff? This is like 7 options. But the bad thing is that the kids, a lot of these kids thought that this was a stupid survey, didn't want to do it. So they said things that were not true. That it said that I'm a toaster or whatever. But the problem is that now the state is going to say, look, there's 25% of the kids who are identifying as non-straight. So that means we should put more money to it. So the kids rebelling in that.
Right.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Just because of time, but we do have a couple more questions, and I think that this gentleman was next, and then in the back we'll get you.
Yes, you.
I've just known that all this impurity going on in this world is causing all this corruption and horrible. And kids should not have to be forced to listen to this. They shouldn't be forced to accept it. They have a right to say no to it. Like anybody else has a right to say no to it.
Thank
It's
you.
just so horrible they would allow this to happen.
Yeah. Well, he's fired up.
We have
One
a
more in the
question
back.
Here you are.
I have a question. So, my children's school is a high school. They have Health 1, 2, and 3. And I talked to my kids about what's it about, and they said, well, number 2 is bad. Number 1 is not as bad, and number 3. What do you know about Health 1, 2, and 3? Clackamas County.
Frightening scene for so many.
What do we know about Clackamas?
Clackamas County, Health 1, 2, and 3 in high schools.
Well, okay, so that's a great question. I don't think we have the answer, do we?
No, they're trying to push it down our throats right now.
So here's the problem, is that we need more people. So we're passing out right now these forms that you can fill out to start beginning to receive our newsletter or our alerts. Actually, it's not a newsletter. We send out alerts because we need to send out more than one a month. So we don't have a monthly newsletter. We send out news alerts. And we also send out press releases. We'd like you to sign up by filling this out. And we just need you to support our organization. We need you to invite us to come and speak in your community, to tell people about these things. And
Do you have something else?
And about your question, you have the legal right to go to your school and see not just a syllabus, but a lesson plan for any of that 1, 2, and 3 curricula. You go look at it, and then you can go to a school board meeting and read some of them in front of them. It'll be so graphic, they'll say, gee, I didn't know that was going on in our school. And you have the legal right to opt out your child from the course. Of course, you want to stop them from teaching this to all the children in all the subjects. So use your legal rights. The law is on your side.
Thank you for being on a school board, but when you show you're leaning, aren't you going to get voted off?
I think in my school district, we don't want you voted off. So how do you get on a board and stay on a board and have values?
I have the answer to that question. More people need to support her. They need to stand up. You would be surprised how many people agree with us, but they don't know what is going on. So if you sign up for our newsletter, then forward it to everybody you know. We have a Facebook page. Anybody on Facebook, just for fun on Facebook? Yeah. Okay, so get your phone out right now. Go to Parents' Rights in Education Facebook page. Like our page. We want you to like the posts too and share them. But if you don't like the page, you know what I mean by like the page? I mean, a lot of people don't know. Okay, so you like the page, and then every time we post something, you will be alerted to that. Do you get the alerts? What are they called? The notifications? If you have your notifications turned on, you'll see. Okay? Share our posts. Share them publicly. We need more exposure. We need more bodies, bottom line, who will go with you to your school board meeting, who will stand behind you when you testify and read from the actual curriculum that they're teaching. Because even school board members, even the superintendent, they do not believe what is going on in their own dang school district. Okay, are we out of time? Not yet. Any other questions? One more. Please. Okay.
Okay, I went to a parents' meeting in the Westland District, and they asked us to come if we wanted to input on how to teach the state standards. And when I saw the state standards at that meeting, I was speechless and ready to cry. We have outdone California, but they told me the standards were a done deal.
No.
We weren't there to discuss the standards. We were there to give input on how to teach the standards, but they've already been enacted, and they're beyond.
We know. That is what they tell you, to brainwash you into thinking that you have no rights as a parent. Would you like to speak to this? I do. Gee, fancy that.
Here, enter Eli Sanders. This man here, he's not a good person. He will bring that curriculum to the schools, and he will make the school district think that there is a mandated curriculum in sex ed. There is not. They do not have to follow what Eli Sanders says, nor put in the curriculum that there is a, okay. Go ahead.
Taking time away from the video.
Okay. Well, anyway, no, don't do what Eli Sanders says.